Hey everyone, this is Ahmed Kira with the Cribl Solutions Engineering team. In this video, we're going to walk through how Cribl and CrowdStrike's NG SIEM are better together. So that at the end of the day, just like the shirt says, let's see, NG SIEM is going to be your AI-native SOC, and it's going to be made simpler with Cribl. But it's not going to just stop there. Let's see how else we work better together. At the end of the day, by putting Cribl in front of NG SIEM, you're going to have full control of your security data. You're going to control what you send to NG SIEM, send it to valuable data, send it data that matters for detections, but send everything full fidelity to an agnostic data lake that is pennies on the dollar. And that'll enable you to separate your system of analytics, which is NG SIEM, from your system of retention, long-term, which in this case would be a data lake, which could be Cribl Lake. NG SIEM is going to help you really transform your SOC to have a more modern experience that is up to 150 times faster. And by having Cribl send less data to NG SIEM, it's even going to make it even faster than that. And at the end of the day, you're going to have a much lower total cost of ownership with the two together, and you're going to improve your security operations, your future-proof them, because you're going to have an agnostic copy of your data in an agnostic data lake, in essence, future-proofing, as well as improving your security posture long-term. Now, if there's an investigation of something you need a year later, you're going to have a copy of it. You can replay it in NG SIEM. You can use it in Cribl Search, as we'll see here in a minute. And so how are we going to do all this? We're going to go through this lab where we have various components, all of the pieces of the Cribl portfolio, along with NG SIEM. We're going to have typical security use cases here, including data from Palo Alto firewalls, Corelight to look at the network traffic, Calvio as a honeypot. We even have Cribl Edge agents on Linux and Windows to capture logs from that end. And all this data is going to flow through Cribl Stream, where we're going to now intelligently filter out the noise, remove the stuff that isn't so important for detections. All that in its full fidelity is going to go into Cribl Lake, but the actionable data is what's going to go into CrowdStrike's NG SIEM. And as part of the portfolio, Cribl Search is also available out there in the event that data has either aged out of NG SIEM, or perhaps we need to replay some data, pull some data out of Cribl Lake, and send it even to NG SIEM for some analysis there. So let's go ahead and see this lab environment in action and see how all this works together. First screen here, this is our Cribl Cloud interface, where we'll have access to all the Cribl products, including Cribl Search, Edge, Lake, but where we're going to spend majority of our time here is going to be Cribl Stream. In this next tab, we have Cribl Stream loaded up into our QuickConnect view, where we can see all of the sources that we're capturing on the left-hand side. So here's a Cribl Edge Linux, Cribl Edge Windows, Corelight, Syslog, Calvio, all the various different sources. We are sending them to two different places. We can see the first set of lines up top here that do not have any icon on top of them. That's because we're doing pass-through, full fidelity data copy to Cribl Lake. But we have an icon over here to everything going to Falcon Next Gen SIEM. That's because we are doing some kind of transformation to the data, some kind of filtering to the data, so that we send actionable, intelligent data to Next Gen SIEM. And so now let's see what we're doing here, what the results are of some of this filtering and transformation we're doing of the data going to NG SIEM. In this next view here, we can see over a 30-minute period here, we can see we've taken for Cribl Edge Windows, coming in, we have 21,000 events. Going out, we have 1,000 or so. So a massive reduction there of data going from in versus going out. And you can see we're doing the same with the other sources. We have some more room to grow here with the Corelight side because that's a very noisy data source. But for now, we're filtering out known domains. We know of two known domains, basically all the data going out to NG SIEM as well as all the data being communicated out to Cribl Lake and to Cribl Cloud, we are filtering that data out from basically going to NG SIEM. And same with Syslog. Syslog, we are basically, for the Palo Alto traffic here, we are removing east-west traffic that is allowed. And typically, that's data that's not as relevant on a firewall, but you might still need access to it. That's why all this data is going into Cribl Lake as well. All right, so this is some of the outcome of what were the volume optimizations we're doing, sending data to NG SIEM. Let's see, if we go back to our diagram here, let's see what some of these optimizations are. So let's start with the Windows one. So if we hover over this icon and pack, we see here, we're processing this Windows for NG SIEM pack. Let's see what that is. If we go over here now to this next window, here we have the pack already opened up. And we can see here, we're filtering, we have these different routes inside the pack so that if we have a Windows security log, it's going to apply this filter to see, is it a Windows security log? And if so, it's going to apply this pipeline. Same with DHCP. If there's a file that's being monitored that has DHCP in its name, it's going to process this pipeline instead. So let's look at the Windows event logs, the Windows security logs over here, and what we're doing with them. If we click on this, here we have a pipeline where we're filtering on known event codes. And on the right-hand side here, we have a sample Windows security log that was captured. So we can capture on the fly over here, come in here to sample data, capture data, and we just change the input ID to be let's see, the Cribl HTTP for Windows. And so that would be over here somewhere. Anyways, we'd filter on that. And here, we'll do this filter right there. And we'll capture, start. Any new Windows events that are happening right now, here we go, we'll come across and we can save these off over here with the save a sample file. But let's go ahead and stop this capture, move my face around so I can see the buttons. And let's stop and go ahead and close this. We already have this file over here. And so again, we are using this pipeline, which consists of one or more functions, including this lookup function to basically say, hey, is the event codes in these events 4624, 4672, are they the top 20 Windows security events that we care about? And if so, we're going to keep those events. If not, we're going to just make sure they only go to Cribl Lake. And so if we go to this Out tab now we can see what events are going to go through to NG SIEM and which ones are only going to be in Cribl Lake. So like this number 5 here is crossed out, number 6 is crossed out, and this looks like 5379 is one of those events. And this lookup file is through knowledge over here. So if we go knowledge, open a new tab, and jump over to that side, here we'll have the file where we basically are keeping a list of all of those event codes, top 20 event codes to keep. Again, anything else is going to only be in Cribl Lake. And so this will make the data that's going to NG SIEM cleaner, and it's also going to make NG SIEM faster as a result of doing that. And by doing this too, even though we saw in the monitoring page earlier the live reductions, here in testing out pipelines, we can also come over here and see how much reduction we have. And so in this case, NG SIEM primarily cares about what's in the raw field. So we are sending NG SIEM 58% less data just by applying this pipeline. All right, so that's one use case for the Windows events. Let's look at another one. So let's look at the Syslog over here. So in this case, we have another pack. And in this case, it's this Palo Alto pack right here. So let's go ahead and open up that pack and see what it's doing. So if we go, let's go over here, we'll go to processing packs, go to our Palo Alto pack. And in this case, there's only one live filter here of if it's a traffic event, then apply this pipeline. But everything else here is turned off because we're basically doing pass-through via default here for everything else. The only area where we're applying any logic is for the traffic events, which guess what, are generally 90–95% of the Palo Alto traffic volume. So let's go ahead and go into this pipeline, and let's bring up over here a sample from this environment. Here is sample events, standard Syslog events coming from Palo Alto. And the primary thing we are doing here is basically evaluating if the source address is internal, the destination address is internal, and the action is allowed. If they are, then we are basically dropping those events. This is really the main thing that we are doing here. And if we look at the optimizations here, by doing this, we're sending about 36% less data to NG SIEM. This is based on this sample of events that we have here. And in this case, we have how many events? We have 90, 91, we have 52 events. We have 52 events over here with a file size of 91K or so. So only a sample file, but it gives us an indication when as we're testing the pipeline of how well it's going to do. And then that monitoring page is what showed us what our live streaming optimizations are. All right, well, great. We saw what some of the optimizations that we can do here in Cribl. We saw that we can send data to multiple places in Cribl. Let's now focus on what happens when this data goes to NG SIEM. So for that, let's jump back to the Windows scenario. And so one of the first things you want to do when you're integrating with NG SIEM is make sure it's going to map to a supported parser. So if we go over here and bring up this event file again, and we're going to go into the Out tab, and we're going to take at least one event here that is going to be passed through. We want to copy it. Well, we're going to use this in a minute here when we go into the NG SIEM side. So now if we go to NG SIEM, which is through the CrowdStrike interface, here we have this menu. Next Gen SIEM is where we're going to spend all our time. Right now we are in the detections page, so we can see various detections against data that has been sent by Cribl. In this case, mostly from the Palo Alto firewalls over here. But where we're going to spend our time for the rest of the time here is in data onboarding and advanced event search. So let's go to the data onboarding page. And from here, this is where if we now go to My Connectors, and let's filter on the connectors that we are using here. So I've managed to have naming convention where I'm putting my initials at the beginning of each one of them. And we can see here, most of them are this HEC data connector type, but there's one of them that's also a Cribl data connector type. They're both kind of the same, but with the Cribl one, you get to also select a vendor and a product when creating this connector. But let's see for the Windows one, what we have to do. So click on this. We can see here, here's our integration point. It's basically this API that we're going to point to along with an API key. And then here is the parser that we're using. So that's the parser that we want to look at and basically see what is going on with this, and will the events coming from Cribl, will they apply correctly? So if we go back to My Connectors over here, we'll go to Parsers. And now we'll look for that parser that we were just referenced in the other screen in the connector. And it's right here, this Cribl Ahmed Edge Windows JSON. So let's click on that. Here now, it's going to show us the parsing. So it's pretty straightforward here. We're basically just parsing the JSON and extracting the time from this field of time created. And to run a test, this is where we need to have sample events to make sure our events are going to work with this parser. So to do that, we need to edit parser. And let's go ahead and remove these events here. Delete test, delete test. All right, and now let's add test, and that event we copied earlier from Cribl, we're going to put that in here. So this is exactly that event we copied. And now if we go ahead and click on run tests, this is where it's going to attempt to pass this through. And we can see over here, passed 1, failed 0, because we only have one event right now. We can paste more. We can do add test and copy other sample events to see what they look like. But we can see here all the various fields. The raw string is basically everything original. NG SIEM is only going to care about the raw field over here. And if we look down here, here's just that raw field, but also all of the other fields that are part of that, including things like ID, which is the event code. Here's the host, and various other fields over here, including properties. So we know this works, and so now when Cribl sends data to the connector that is mapped to this parser, it should show up in the event viewer. So let's go take a look at these events. Let's filter on some Windows events. So to do that, we're going to go Next Gen SIEM, Advanced Event Search. And from here, we will want to first filter for just third-party events. So this is where we're going to, over here for this all, we're going to say just third-party. And right now we're looking at last 15 minutes only. Let's expand this to a little longer period of time where we had some data flowing from our test. And to filter some more, we want to filter by the parser name. The parser is populated in this at source type field. If we click on fetch more here, this will update, even though it's only showing us 1 right now. When we click on it, it'll actually fetch us all of the values of the different parsers. So you can see all the parsers that have been used here in this environment. Here's the one I care about. So I'm going to click on this one. And now it's going to show me just the events that map to this parser. And so here now I see the raw string. I see all of these other fields that also got extracted. And so now, because we're doing it this way, everything should map to detections in NG SIEM. And one other thing that's worth calling out is NG SIEM comes with a lot of parsers out of the box. So if we go back to the parsers screen, Next Gen SIEM, and then we go to data onboarding, there's a lot of data sources here, but if we go to parsers, this is where the brains are. This is where, when you map to out-of-the-box parsers, you'll have detections mapped automatically in NG SIEM. And so, for example, let's look at Palo Alto. Here's the one we have, and it's really a copy of the second one. So if we just open the second one real quick, we can see here there's a wealth of information in here for parsing the Palo Alto data. And if we back arrow and click on the other one, we are in effect doing the same thing here now. But in this case, we can do edit parser, and we can add more tests in case we change the format of the events. Say we remove the beginning over here, but keep all these comma separated values. We can see if NG SIEM will accept that. And if it does, guess what? We can work on the Cribl side to potentially remove duplicative data. So tight integration, we want to leverage as much of these out-of-the-box parsers as possible so that you can leverage the out-of-the-box detections. But at the same time, this is also extensible so that you can modify these parsers to work with the format of data that Cribl has sent. And at the end of the day, Cribl is sending less data to NG SIEM, so it's faster, it's more usable. And Cribl is enabling you to also save your data in other places so that you have good response times, so that you have good security posture, keeping the data as long as you need it for future investigations. Let's finish off by covering some key takeaways of how CrowdStrike's NG SIEM is made better with Cribl. First, Cribl is going to give you access to all of your security data, and it's going to enable you to store your data for as long as you want economically, ultimately improving your security posture. We're going to start with Cribl Edge to help with some of the collection. This is an agent that complements the CrowdStrike EDR, Falcon EDR agent. It'll collect security logs on Windows, Kubernetes, Linux, as well as observability data like CPU disk memory. That data can be routed to your observability tool of choice, but your logs would be routed to NG SIEM. And that routing to NG SIEM would be done through Cribl Stream, acting as your universal data broker. Doesn't matter if the data is Syslog, Cribl Edge, API calls, any security data, Cribl Stream will intercept that data and then give you the choice and control of what to do with that data. You can send it all to CrowdStrike's NG SIEM, have that be your SIEM as well as your long-term storage, or you can route actionable data to NG SIEM and route full fidelity raw data into a data lake, which could be Cribl Lake, your choice. And then when it's time to do an investigation or an audit a year later, 2 years later possibly, you can use Cribl Stream to replay that data into NG SIEM. You can also use Cribl Search to just search that data in place and do your investigative and audit searching there as well. So these are some of the ways where Cribl is better with NG SIEM, giving you more options and improving your security posture at the end of the day. Thank you very much.